Welcome to SteeleWatching, which is a podcast for Remington Steele fans. My name is Sara, and I am so very tired.
And I'm Eric, and I'm just, I'm not tired. I'm just not having, I'm having one of those days where, yeah, it's not a good day. You don't even need
to explain. You just say that and everybody knows what you mean. I get it.
Yes.
Well,
so
hopefully this will make it better because we're going to be talking about the finale of season 2, Elementary Steele. So
yes,
that'll perk things up, I think. And this
no, that was last week.
Yeah, Wookiees. No, different one. This episode first aired on May 22nd, 1984, and it was written by Michael Gleason and directed by Seymour Robbie. So we got two heavy hitters here. Seymour and Michael, the dream team.
Yes.
So I went with the TV Guide synopsis for this one. Simple and to the point. Mystery buffs have signed up for a make-believe case that's actually a scheme to locate a mysterious embezzler. So, I like that.
I've got...
you didn't like it, did you?
No. The synopsis is fine. I have a substantial issue with the episode.
Oh,
I don't know if I should say it here or at the end. What do you want? You want me to save it, or you want me to just hit you with it?
Let's hit me with it, because then it's going to bug me. I'm going to be, because you mentioned it. Now it's going to bug me.
Yeah. Okay, here's my issue. Do we really believe a bunch of, I'll say it, know-nothing amateurs could really succeed at finding these people who have been hiding from, like, the police and other authorities for so long?
In 1984, no. In 2024, easy. They'd have a Facebook account. They'd have some social media presence.
But in 2024, she wouldn't need them to do it. She could do it herself.
That's true.
Oh, so yeah, that's my major issue.
I mean, it is, but I guess we're supposed to believe that these are all professional people who, like in their normal day jobs, are intelligent, competent adults who maybe have spent a lot of time doing mystery stuff, so they're good at it. I don't know. I kind of went with it just because it's a fun episode, but my issue isn't with that so much as, and I like the episode, but I feel like it switches midway through from being about one thing to being about another thing, and some of it feels a bit, I don't know if it's the pacing or just like it feels a bit like it's disjointed in places.
Okay. I've got some other quibbles too. Yeah. So let's change quibbles as we go along. Okay.
Okay. But to be fair, like it's, as a regular episode, as a normal episode that maybe appears mid-season, I would be perfectly fine with this.
Yeah, I think it's a good episode, but yes, I do have issues.
Yeah, I think this falls into the same trap that we had in season 1, where it just doesn't feel like a finale. Whereas I will say season 3, the finale of season 3 feels like a finale.
No, you're jumping ahead again.
I know.
And you're already trying to set me up for another top 5.
Oh, there's gonna be. Yeah. But yeah, so I guess my main issue beyond the disjointed sort of nature of some of the stuff is that it doesn't really feel like a finale in the sense of like, and I get that this is maybe before shows did big that's not even true, because they had Who Shot JR, and that was like a major thing, right? So yeah. Anyway, it's a good episode, so I'm not gonna
let's stop talking about it and start talking about it.
All right, so we begin with the outline of Sherlock Holmes and what looks to be Watson. Like, so 2 men dressed as Holmes and Watson inside an apartment building. They go up some stairs, come to a door. They knock. When nobody answers, they take out a lockpick that must be sold in every store at this point because these lockpicks are so ubiquitous. Everybody has a set.
No, you get them in your box of cereal.
Yeah, well, it's not even like you could order them on Amazon, right? Like you had to.
Yeah.
I gotta know where they got these. But anyway, they've got lockpick kits, so they take them out. They open the door. And once inside, they run into, and this is another appearance by Lynn Randall, who we saw in season 1 as what was her name? She was the woman that had the body by Bellows, and I can't Randy.
Yeah.
Randy. It was Randy, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Randy. Yeah.
This is her second appearance in the show, so they quite like her, and I can see why. She's a good character actress, right? Like
well, she's also married to one of the production people.
Oh, is she? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh.
From the notes of Steel Trap, which is the episode you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
This is from Judith's book, by the way. Judith Moose, thank you. Wonderful lady.
You've done all the research for
book
us.
on, yes. This is the first of 4 appearances made by Lynn Randall, who at the time of shooting, this is in reference to Steel Trap, was married to executive producer and co-creator Michael Gleason.
Oh, okay. So he wrote the episode and then cast his wife. Okay.
Yeah.
So.
I can just imagine. Mike, you've been working on this show for a year now. When am I going to get shot? When am I going to get a part?
All right. So this is her second appearance, and they come into the building and they run into this woman who is just out of the shower. She's wearing a towel, and obviously she sees them and screams. Holmes tells Watson to grab her. She throws a lamp at them and runs out of the apartment. So Holmes says the game is afoot, and they give chase. And I really like this chase. She jumps on a motorcycle. She's still in her towel. They get into this black.
Okay. First
Got some
quibble.
issues with this.
Yes. Really? She's got a bath towel around her. She's riding a motorcycle at probably 35 miles an hour or more. She's doing stunts, and it doesn't fall off.
I mean,
Not
it's a
buying
really
it.
good towel.
Not buying it.
It's a really good towel.
Yeah. Or she ties it up really, really well, better than anybody in the world. Because
hey, there's an art. There is an art to.
Well, yeah,
tying
but
a towel.
I'm sorry, at 35 miles an hour on a motorcycle with the wind blowing on you. No, it's doing stunts. No, ain't happening.
The stunts are pretty cool.
Yes.
Like they get into this black Rolls Royce, and they start chasing her. And she drives by these cops to get their attention, but they're too busy flirting. So she stands on top of the motorcycle and rides. I gotta say, her leg is right up in the air. That had to be quite a show for the car behind her.
Yeah. Well, obviously he wrecked it.
Yeah. So said car drives into another car, alerting the cops, who say goodbye to the women and get on their bikes. So yeah, that gets their
Except
attention.
that
It kind of.
their motorcycles don't have any police markings.
That's I noticed that. You know what the scene reminded me of, though? I don't know if you've seen the movie Bridesmaids.
No.
Okay, so there's a scene in the film where the main character is trying to get the attention of the police officer that she was dating. They broke up and he's kind of ignoring her. So she needs his help with something, and she drives by him and he's ignoring her. So she drives by again, he ignores her. So then she drives by and she's like pretending to, like, she's got a big bottle of like champagne and she's like, look, I'm drinking and driving, and he's still like not paying attention. And then at one point she drives by, she's texting, she's like, look, no hands. And like and she just goes back and forth until eventually he has to like do something because she's clearly violating the law. So yeah, this kind of reminded me of that scene. It's quite a funny scene, and this is quite amusing. They eventually pull her over. She gets off her bike, hands on her hips, and asks them what took them so long. So it's a good opening scene. Like, I will say that this is quite effective as a scene opener, as an opener for the show. So. And then we get a scene change, and so this is maybe my first quibble about the episode. We got this.
Okay.
Shot of the offices, we see delivery men bringing in basket upon basket of flowers for Laura. They announce the flowers from Miss Holt. Mildred sarcastically says, "Oh, really?" And when the men ask where to put them, Mildred says, "Don't tempt me." Which, that I like. I do like. She goes to get Laura, who is sitting in her office surrounded by flowers, and tells her that another load has just arrived. So we've got this flower subplot throughout the episode.
Yeah.
This feels out of place in the sense that, like, when you're writing something, when you're writing an episode of television, you kind of have to, as a writer, decide whether or not you're doing something serious or whether you're doing a romp, right? Something kind of goofy, silly, whatever. The show has done slapstick really well. We had episodes in season 1 where, like, for example, the one where Steele thinks that she's having an affair with her art instructor and he goes all squirrely. Like, that
is interesting that you should mention that, because later on I'll have a comment about that episode.
Okay, yeah. So this feels like this should have been in a lighter episode, because midway through the episode when Winston is killed, the tone changes and the episode gets dark, and this subplot gets thrown out the window and never and not mentioned again until like the very end of the episode. So it's almost like they wrote 2 episodes and kind of smushed them together, and one of them felt sort of lighthearted and kind of silly, and the other one felt serious, and they didn't know how to pace it or how to properly like put them together, I guess. And the other issue I have with the flowers is that Laura spends the bulk of her time mooning over this supposed secret admirer, and right in front of him. Like, they both don't behave as their best selves when it comes to this, and I'm not sure that that's serving them at the end of season 2. This would have made more sense in season 1. So
I'm going to go ahead and say it. This whole thing is very reminiscent of that episode. I'm trying to find the name of it here.
It was shoot. It's gonna bug me.
Yeah, but I mean, it's all very reminiscent of that episode, because we have her teasing Steele pretending to get jealous and creating this false scenario. I mean, you could take those two stories and just change some details, and they're the same story.
Yeah, but to me, both are acting very immaturely. And at this point, 2 seasons in, like, I feel like his character has matured enough, and hers has, like, that this doesn't feel like who they are anymore. So it feels like I don't like this subplot. This is not my favorite part. I like the other stuff. I like the stuff with the mystery buffs and what goes on with that, with Winston and everything, but like this part,
I don't like this subplot either.
Okay, so we're on the same page there, because so where was I? Mildred says, "Don't tempt me." She goes to get Laura, who's sitting in her office, like I said, surrounded by flowers, tells her that another load has just arrived. Laura seems thrilled and not the slightest bit annoyed by them, and that seems a little odd too, because you would think that even if she genuinely liked the idea of a secret admirer, that much space being taken up in the office would tick her off. Like, I would think that would make her annoyed.
Well, my take on it was a little bit different. My comment in my notes here is, isn't Laura just a bit too giddy, first of all?
Yeah.
And secondly, at this point, shouldn't she just be a bit annoyed and maybe a bit suspicious?
Yeah, that too, right? Like, this is...
This is weird. I mean, this is beyond...
This is it's creepy. It's creepy in the sense that, like, if I am a grown adult and I start getting mysterious, like, flower arrangements sent to my workplace with no indication of who sent them, I'm not going to be overjoyed. I'm going to be creeped out, frankly, because this is over the top. Like, maybe one bouquet of roses, I would be irritated that they don't put their name, because who doesn't just like step up and say, "Hey, it's from so and so." But filling my office, like, that's stalkery. That's creepy. You know, like, that's not romantic. I don't see.
Nope.
I would not. But she seems beyond giddy, as you said. She asks where to put them. Mildred says they've been over that. Laura boasts her office simply won't hold another bud, which is, it feels weird. She suggests Mr. Steele's office. Mildred seems unsure, but Laura insists everyone loves flowers. They walk in, and Steele looks unimpressed when Laura simply says, aren't they lovely? And also, wouldn't her allergies be going frickin' haywire with this?
I was just thinking that. When you said that, everybody loves flowers. That's what I thought of.
It's just the sneezing and the, So she goes into his office and says, aren't they lovely? He deadpans that they are overwhelming and asks if they are from the same person. Laura says they are her secret admirer. Steele appears to be jealous. He comments on not being able to stand someone who doesn't reveal his true identity, and then asks what it says. Laura says, and this is the part that also I would find super duper creepy. She says she can't tell him as it's far too intimate. He grabs the card from her.
Raises a question in my. Go ahead.
He grabs the card, reads it, and comments on how it's practically pornography.
And then she says one man's pornography is another man's poetry. And I'm thinking that if all of this is true, then what is written on the card came from Lord Marchmain.
Wow, it's like you read my notes. Because I said, shame they didn't notice the similarity between the cards and Lord Marchmain. But if you think about it that way, unless she knows, right? Unless she knows and she's doing it to drive him crazy, which I don't think she does, because the anger that she has at the end over finding out that he used the agency for money to, right? She might have been upset about him using the agency money. And that might have been her issue, not that he was sending him. But I mean, it just, the whole thing, it just feels wrong. That would be the only character interpretation that would work for me, because Laura Holt getting these bushels of flowers and being fine with them taking up every square inch of the office is one thing, but then having them say something that is, quote, practically pornography on them from a stranger? No, I'd be calling the police. Yeah. Like, if it were me, I'd be like, no, we're calling the police and saying this is, because that's obsessive. That's disturbing. So anyway, she goes into her office and Mildred urges Steele to fight fire with fire. He replies, what do you want me to do? Mildred, send her a redwood, which that I like. I like that line. The phone rings and Mildred answers it, telling him that a Rocky Sullivan is on the phone for him. He tells her to take a message. Yep.
Mildred gets a little bit bent out of shape about this. And my impression is that she's a little bent out of shape about the content of the cards.
Yeah, she did not seem impressed with the content of the cards. And my question
for that was, really? I mean, Dark Prince, anyone?
Considering the submissions she was getting over the computer. Yeah, it seems a little, maybe she wishes she was getting the cards.
Anyway, all right.
But so she says that a Rocky Sullivan is on the phone for him. He tells her to take a message that he's not in the mood for someone named Rocky. Mildred says it's a her, and then he takes the phone. So, They find themselves in the scene change in a psychiatric hospital with Rocky Sullivan in a straitjacket on the bed. Now I have some issues with this, because would she really have been committed like this? Isn't a straitjacket a bit much for a non-violent offense? You'd think she'd be charged with stunt driving or reckless driving and sent on her way. Like, I can't imagine the police going...
Well, it's the Sherlock Holmes and Watson thing. Hey, Sherlock Holmes and Watson are chasing me. Okie dokie, yeah. Are they here in the room with you right now? But there's stinking airplane. Oh, that's why. left my window open. Hey, we are professionals. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
But you're right. I mean, she is nonviolent. She was doing some silly things on a motorcycle, and Well, okay, wait a second. I need to rethink that because I have seen people doing wheelies on motorcycles going down the highway at 65 and 70 miles an hour. I'm just going to say this. Anybody who gets on a sport bike, their IQ is automatically reduced by a minimum of 50% because otherwise normal people just get to be idiots when they get on those things. But back to the point. You're right. She was nonviolent. She might have been crazy. I mean, that's how it looked to the cops. And they might have put her in for like a 24, 48-hour psychiatric observation. But no, you're right. They probably wouldn't put her in a straitjacket.
Well, and it also seems to me that, like, if it were me, it's LA. There are people that, like, it's LA, right? It's like Hollywood. To
the
me,
entire town is nuts.
Well, not just that, but like, I would think if I were a cop and somebody said Sherlock Holmes and Watson are chasing me or whatever, I would assume it was actors filming something, right? Yeah. Or somebody in costume. Like, I don't think it would be strange. She could have phrased it differently. Like, again, if I were Rocky, I would say two men dressed like Holmes and Watson are chasing me. I wouldn't say Holmes and Watson are chasing me, right?
Well, that's, yeah, there's that too.
So it just seems odd that she's ended up in a straitjacket and not able to get out, like that they've committed her and she can't get herself out. Like, what were they going to do? Just leave her there to rot? Like,
yeah, apparently.
So yeah, she's in a straitjacket. She's begging Steele to get her out. Laura asks how she knew to call Mr. Steele, and Rocky says his picture is in the paper more than Paul Newman. He seems pleased with this, as a woman from another bed calls out, "Yoo-hoo!" This part I do like. He pretends to be embarrassed that he can't go anywhere without being recognized, and Laura tries to get back to the matter at hand. The Yoo-hoo woman, which is what I've referred to her as, she yells again, "Yoo-hoo!" Laura asks who attacked her. Rocky says it was Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. She appears to be fully aware of how it sounds. So again, this is one of those things where the writing could have, if she had just said, a normal human being would just say, two men dressed like Holmes and Watson were chasing me. But she doesn't. She says she knows how it sounds, and that the Yoo-hoo woman yells again there. She tells him she knows how it sounds and explains how they broke into her house and chased her down Hollywood Boulevard in a car with a steering wheel on the wrong side. Steele asks why they would want to harm her, and she says she doesn't know, adding she doesn't even go to their movies.
Okay, now I think
she's not making things better for herself here.
I think we have stumbled onto the reason why she said what she said about Holmes and Watson, and the way she said it about Holmes and Watson is chasing me, not two guys dressed as Holmes and Watson.
Yeah.
It's because she is one of those people, and we've all known them, who think that what's on TV is real.
Could be, yeah.
I mean...
Then we've got the Yoo-hoo woman again. Yoo-hoo! Steele says, Laura, it's for you. Laura briefly says hello to the woman and asks if she wants them to investigate. Rocky seems less intent on an investigation and more interested in them getting her out. Would they even be able to do that? Like, they don't have power of attorney or anything. How would they get her out?
That would be a good question. I don't know that they actually could. I mean, unless they... there might be a way that they could do it by saying, well, okay, she's not really mentally ill. She's a client. We're working on a case. Yes, she misstated it. It was actually two individuals who were dressed as Holmes and Watson who have been harassing her and following her. But by the time they go through the process of getting the paperwork done, the 48-hour hold might be over.
Yeah. It's weird. It's weird that she thinks, I don't know. I would think that in order to get somebody out like that, you would have to either be a relative or someone, like I said, with power of attorney or a mental health professional. See, that's the thing is that the even a relative or someone with power of attorney, I don't think could get them out if they're in there on a court-imposed medical psychiatric hold for 24, 48 hours. Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, I don't, I don't think that they could really do anything, but then again, people often do. When they're in a situation where they need some help, they will often approach somebody or ask somebody for help who really is unable to help simply because they don't know who else to contact.
True. That's true.
So that's my only explanation.
She says she has a singing gig in Reseda, and if she doesn't show, they'll fire her. Laura promises fake, kind of a fake tone to investigate and get back to her promptly. Steele tells her to stay off Hollywood Boulevard. The Yoo-Hoo woman yells again, and Rocky says, "Easy for you to say."
So could they have been any more condescending toward Rocky?
Yeah, they're not very. Both of them are kind of. Mm-hmm. To be fair, though, I guess if you're being phoned by somebody in a psychiatric institution who's in a straitjacket telling you that Holmes and Watson chased you, you're probably not going to take them very seriously.
But I mean, just because you don't take somebody seriously doesn't mean you have to be quite so.
Oh, true. No, I agree that.
Yeah. There's ways of doing it without being so offensive.
Yeah.
Anyway,
they leave.
That's my comment.
No, I agree. And as they leave, Steele is trying to rationalize what happened to Rocky by saying she was obviously longing for a simpler time in a day and age where everything is automated and impersonal. As he does, Laura spots the Rolls Royce that Holmes and Watson drove. She looks in and sees the steering wheel is on the wrong side, and Steele says, "Only for some." I do like that comment.
Yeah, that's a good line.
Reminding the audience that, yes, he is British, and it's weird being in those cars, by the way, because we go back and forth to Scotland. Mm-hmm. I can't even count how many times now. And anytime you get in a car where you're in the other side as a passenger, you're just like, mm-hmm. You feel like you should be driving and you're not. It's very strange.
Well, what's funny is that, a few people have imported cars to the U.S. from Europe.
Yeah, I've seen that.
They're here in the U.S. and they are right-hand steer. And I've got a bad left shoulder. I injured it a number of years ago in a work accident. And I've always thought, because getting in and out of the car on the left-hand side, you got to use that left shoulder to open the door, close the door, that sort of thing. And so I've always thought I would like to get a right-hand steer car because it would be so much easier
to get in and out.
Yes. So if anybody knows anybody who's got a right-hand steer car available for cheap, let me know.
Yeah, I don't think you'll get them cheap. That's the thing. So they decide to investigate. And meanwhile, Holmes is making a phone call. He is telling whoever's on the other end that they have tracked Rocky down. He says she led them on a merry chase, but they have found her at the hospital, no doubt there to evade detection. He says that she will be theirs before the day is out. Meanwhile, Steele and Laura go to reception, and I do like this bit. Steele asks to speak to Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. The man asks if they are visiting or checking in.
Did you notice the book he's reading?
No, what's he reading?
It's not Charlotte Knight. I couldn't tell who the author was. I don't know if it's a real book or not, but it's called Passionate Flame.
Nice. Okay.
And he took her in his arms and he said,
wow. Okay.
I mean, they've got this real thing on this show for those kinds of books, don't they?
Yeah, they really do. They really do. Laura tries to clarify, asking. See, Laura says the right word. She says, asking if men dressed like them have come in.
Yes.
Now, at this point, the guy is just being kind of a jerk. He pretends to understand, but still hasn't seen them. Laura asks to speak to the chief psychiatric doctor. He says, "I bet you would." And Laura orders him to dial. What is it with people like that are manning we saw this a bit with the episode with Maury Singer too. Like they're manning these facilities and they're completely unprofessional and should not be in that job.
In some ways though, I mean, I can kind of sympathize with them a little bit. I never stooped quite that low, but I did have a situation kind of like that once. I spent 6 years in the Air National Guard, and 4 of those years I spent working full time as an employee for the state military department, doing my job that I did as a guardsman, as an employee. And I was security law enforcement. And one of the things I had to do was work the front gate. And this would have been early 1980s, mid 1980s. And I was working the gate, and a guy comes up and he says, "I need to borrow one of your airplanes." What? "I need to borrow one of your airplanes. I need to go to the White House." "Why do you need to go to the White House in one of our planes?" And he pulls out this letter and he says, "The president has called for me. He's expecting me." And he hands me this letter. It's a form letter for a re-election campaign. And
oh no, bless his heart.
Oh, wow. So fortunately, our security office was just like right around the corner from the gate. So I told him, I said, "Well, okay." And this was after the assassination attempt on Ronald Reagan. So I used that. I said, after that situation, they're very careful about all this. So we just need you to go to the security office and check in there, and we'll have somebody meet you there, and they'll just make sure everything's all up to snuff, and they'll get you taken care of. "Okay, great, fantastic." Of course, I got on the phone right away and said, "Hey, we got one.
We got a ripe one."
We were constantly getting people that had issues coming up to the base to
I can see that guy being taken by the Nigerian prince scam.
Email. I'm sure he would have been. Yeah, he probably still is. Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, this scene where they're checking in also reminds me of, have you seen Arsenic and Old Lace?
Yes.
The bit where
it's been a long time ago, though.
Okay, well, the scene where he's trying to check his aunts into Happy Dale Sanitarium, and his brother Teddy, who believes he's Theodore Roosevelt, right? And he explains it to the guy on the other end. The guy's like, "Well, we have a lot of Teddy Roosevelts. Do you think we're kind of short on Lincolns, though?"
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, "Do you think?" No, he's committed to it. Okay. I kind of like that bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's cute. Back out of the car, Holmes asks Watson if he has it. Watson asks if it's really necessary, and Holmes says it's best to be prepared just in case. Holmes agrees and pulls a revolver out, which he puts in his jacket. I'm hoping these guns are not loaded, because...
Well, we find out later it's got blanks in it.
Yeah, oh, right, yes. Okay, I forgot about that. Yeah, it still seems kind of a risky thing to be carrying around for a game, but...
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I mean, because, if you don't use them correctly and safely, I mean, even blanks can be deadly.
Also,
people have killed other people with blanks because they're not air. They actually have gunpowder in them. They have a wad of material in them, and that wad of material comes out at very, very high speeds. And people have been killed by blanks. Never mind people who've been killed by, I won't say his name.
Well, also I would think that and again, I don't know what the rules are. I know that your laws vary state to state when it comes to like handguns and whether or not you're able, but I don't know, is California a state where you can just walk around with a concealed firearm?
Not as far as I'm aware. California is one of those states that you have to basically almost get killed. Actually, it'd be better if you were killed before they will give you a permit for a concealed weapon.
Yeah.
Unless you're a politician or guarding a politician, because, they're special.
So I would
Short
think
yellow school bus special, but they're special.
I would think if they're walking around with a firearm, whether it's got blanks or not, it won't matter if they're pulled,
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean, it would still be considered a concealed weapon.
Yeah. So, and here in Canada, you can't walk around in any part of the country with a handgun concealed. Otherwise, it's not allowed. You can have one, but it has to stay at home or wherever it is you keep it. And if you are transporting it, you actually have to get a permit to transport and have it with you. So if you're pulled over, you can say, "I've got my," and you have to keep the bullets separate. And there's a whole process you have to do if you're going to go somewhere, because people go hunting and stuff. So they've got to do all that before they're able to to do it. So, whenever I see stuff like this, I'm like, well, I don't know what the state's laws are on, but I would think that if they're not allowed to have a concealed firearm, then this might not be a good thing to bring for your game.
Yeah, that would definitely be the case here. Yes.
Yeah. So we have a scene change. Laura, Rocky, and Steele are exiting the hospital. Laura apologizes to Rocky for the clothes, saying they had to get whatever was on the rack. She says it's better than the straitjacket and asks how they managed to spring her. Steele says they vouched for her veracity and called in a few favors. With who? I guess maybe they know some mental health professionals?
Or some judges.
Yeah, that's true. It could be yeah. She's confused and points out that they didn't believe her. Laura admits that they didn't, and when she asks what changed their mind, Steele points to the Rolls Royce. So he tells her not to gape, so as not to let the hunter know he's become the hunted. They get into the limo, and Laura suggests they take the car for a leisurely drive down a blind alley.
Can I throw out a theory here?
Sure.
Okay. They call the driver Fred.
Yes.
It's not Fred. I'm starting to think
everybody's Fred?
Yes. Everybody who drives the limo is called Fred because they can't be bothered to learn their real name.
Well, no, that's just rude. I don't like that idea.
Well, you got a better explanation?
Not really, no, but still. So yeah, Rocky says, I do like this too. Rocky says she wants to get her hog first, and Steele says they don't have room for pets.
Teacher, I got an issue.
You got a lot of issues.
Yes, I do. But once I get a doctor, I'll be much better. It was obvious, or fairly obvious, at the beginning of the episode, and then it becomes more obvious, blatantly obvious, in just a few scenes here. I'm sorry. Harley Davidson, I'm surprised, let that line get through because her motorcycle is not a Harley Davidson, and only a Harley Davidson is a hog.
Okay, see, I did not know that, and that went right over my head. So I'm guessing that if you're like me, it didn't. They just figured you were like me. I'm assuming they assumed, everyone was like me as the audience and just would not have noticed that because I thought all motorcycles were called hogs. I didn't realize that was
There's a whole story behind that. So, no.
What's the story?
Oh, well.
You can't tell me there's a story and then not tell me the story.
Harley Davidson Motorcycle Company fielded a factory race team starting back in 1914. And originally, they didn't do so well, but in a few years, they started pretty much dominating everything, racking up wins all over the place. And they earned the name the Wrecking Crew. Now, after World War, racing had been, during World War I, racing had been suspended. So then after the race, or after the war, they came back to the racetracks, started racing, and in the early 1920s, one of their team members acquired a pet piglet who was quickly adopted as the team's mascot. And the tradition soon began of riding a victory lap after each win with the pig sitting on the gas tank.
That's so cute.
This practice led to various journalists calling the racers the Harley Hogs.
Oh, okay.
As well as comments about Harley was hogging all the victories from Indian and Excelsior, their competitors. Right. And eventually the term hog became synonymous with Harley Davidson motorcycles. And as the years went by, the company embraced the moniker, and now hog is used as an acronym for the Harley Owners Group, as well as Harley Motor Company's listings on the stock exchange. So, yeah. I'm really surprised that Harley let that go through because, there's legal issues here.
I didn't notice at all. So I guess it was. I'm
sorry.
Now,
I ride a Harley, and so. So I'm very, very sensitive. I'm very sensitive to being abused, and you don't ever do that again.
So my brother just turned 35, and he sent me a picture of a motorcycle, bright yellow motorcycle, and said, so I did a thing. And I responded to him with, "Do you even have a motorcycle license?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "Also, it doesn't run." And I said, "Oh, okay."
Well, then you don't need a license.
Well, yeah. And I said, why would you buy a motorcycle that doesn't run?" And he said, "Well, I'm going to fix it up." And I said, "Do you know anything about fixing motorcycles?" And he went, "No, I'm going to learn." I'm like, "Okay, then. All right. Well, it's going to be a while before you ride that thing." But it was quite funny. It's a vintage 1985 Suzuki something or other. Very nice bike. But it's pure my brother, because he's ADHD like me, right? And so this is like classic him. Buy something, don't know how to ride it, don't know how to fix it, gonna try to do both. But I said to him, "You just turned 35.
Boy, does that sound familiar.
I'm like, "You're not supposed to have the midlife crisis till you're 40. What? You're 5 years early here." And he said, "Well, actually, I'm a millennial and I never got the chance to do stupid stuff in my youth. So I'm actually doing this late." So I was like, "Yeah, okay, that makes sense." he's got a new bike, but it is not a hog, I guess, which I now know.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So
there's a scene.
But Steele didn't know either, because he says they don't have room for pets. So Laura points out it's the motorcycle. And okay, not the right one, but still. And they instruct Fred to drive.
Yes.
As the limo pulls away, the Rolls Royce immediately follows them. They arrive at the impound lot, and Laura tells Steele to help Rocky get the hog while she doubles back and catches them like a pincer. Steele and Rocky get out, and the limo pulls away again. We see Steele and Rocky ride the motorcycle out and down the street. I love this bit. Steele looks extremely uncomfortable.
Well, yeah.
And she...
You know why, don't you?
No, why?
There's a term for what he's doing.
Oh, what's that?
It's called riding itch.
What?
It's called riding itch.
Oh. I've never heard that term before. Wow, okay.
That is traditionally the position that a female, your old lady, would ride. And it's very, very unmanly to be riding back there.
Okay. And I'm sorry to do this. It's not a Buffy reference, but it is a reference to the Buffy spinoff Angel. And there is an episode where Wesley goes to get on his motorcycle and tells Angel to get on, and Angel's like, all Wesley has is a pink helmet, and Angel is, a vampire, and he's too manly and whatever. And eventually he gives in and he puts the helmet on, and Wesley's like, "Hop on, gorgeous." So yeah, that kind of made me think of that. Yeah. She says she loves.
There's a YouTube video, I saw it, and it's I think it's called something about how a man can ride as this, and it is just absolutely hilarious. I don't know, it's obviously a parody, but I don't know what it's a parody of. But I mean, it's yeah, just look up YouTube man riding. Yeah.
Okay.
And it'll probably come up.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, Steele looks uncomfortable, and she says she loves the wind at her back. See, I thought he just looked uncomfortable because she said she likes 150 cc's throbbing between her legs.
Well, that could be too.
I assume that was why he was looking uncomfortable, because then he says he prefers his hogs as bacon. And then he asks her to drive slowly, and just as she... And I gotta say, I'm kind of with Steele on this, because... And maybe I'd feel differently if I were the one driving the motorcycle, but my dad used to have a bike. And he would sometimes pick me up from school on it. And it was the most embarrassing thing on the planet. I think he thought it was going to make me cool. It did not make me cool. This was in the 7th grade. And like, I remember just being terrified because like, it just felt too open. And I was at the mercy of like the elements and somebody else driving. And it's the same in the car, but I guess in the car, you're also surrounded by metal, right? So like I was not a fan, but I think it would be different if I were the one in control of the of the bike. Like if I were driving it, I'd feel
It
better
makes a
about it.
difference.
Yeah.
Whether it's a motorcycle or a car, it makes a difference, or an airplane. If you don't feel like you have the ability to control what's happening, you feel like I don't want to say victim, but you feel like
vulnerable.
Very much so. Yeah.
Yeah. Because and it's funny because it's different with my husband. He doesn't like to drive because his OCD. And he drives like, what if somebody jumped out in front of the car? What if I hit that tree? What if I did this? What if I did that? He can drive and he's very good at driving, but he just doesn't like it. It's stressful. So I do all the driving when we go anywhere. And I'm perfectly fine with that because I like being in control. So, it works out. But yeah, so he's not a fan. He asks her to drive slowly. And just as he does, two men in a pickup truck look at them and they begin laughing.
Yep.
Steele.
That's going back to,
I love this. See, and I don't think there's anything to be embarrassed about personally. Like he's just on a bike and she's driving, but I guess that's just me. But he in order to save face, he pretends to give her instructions on how to drive it, claiming that she's been begging him to teach her how to ride his hog. He doesn't finish the sentence, however, because she hits the gas and almost knocks him off. I like that.
Yeah.
We see the motorcycle followed by the Rolls Royce and Laura behind that. Steele instructs them to go down the alleyway, and the Rolls follows. They box it in. Laura gets out of the car while Steele approaches them. Sherlock tells them to stay back, and Laura demands to know what they want with Rocky. Watson pulls out his gun. See, this is stupid because, well, I guess
especially in LA.
Yeah, well, I guess in their mind it's all a game and they're all actors, but like,
yeah,
it's still stupid. Yeah. Still stupid.
It's stupid because it's in LA, and you don't know how somebody's going to respond to having you having a gun. Also because it's probably illegal in LA to even have it, much less carry it concealed.
Yeah,
and also just the fact that guns are not toys.
No.
You don't treat them like toys. You don't play with them like toys. Yeah.
Agreed. So he pulls out his gun. He fires at Steele, who falls to the ground. Laura tackles him, grabs the gun, but Steele realizes that he hasn't been hit and sits up. Laura fires the gun at the Rolls and sees it does. Wouldn't it at least somewhat damage the Rolls Royce if she fired it that closely? Like even with blanks?
It would definitely leave a mark. I don't know if it would damage it.
Yeah, I would think there'd be some sort of.
But yeah, a blank has a wad that keeps the gunpowder in, and that thing is flying at very high velocities when it comes out of the gun. So yeah, right. I mean, it would at very minimum leave a mark and possibly put a slight dent in it. My question is, these guys, obviously, they're not Sherlock Holmes Watson.
No.
Obviously, they don't own this car. One, where did they rent it? Two, what is the insurance on renting something like that? I mean, it's got to be ridiculous.
Well, I know that people rent stuff like Rolls Royces and whatnot for like weddings.
Yeah, but they usually provide the driver. They don't just let you go take off with it,
That's fair. Yeah, I don't know where you would rent something like that. That's a good point. So yeah, she realizes that they're blanks, and Sherlock tells him it's a game. So we get a scene change, and Steele asks what they mean by it's a game. Sherlock tells him they're on a magical mystery tour. He introduces himself as Howard Epps.
Magical mystery tour has come. Oh, sorry.
I am going to probably flick back and forth between calling them by their names and by their characters, because sometimes I forget who's who, like their real names. So if I call them Sherlock instead of Howard,
I
mean, go with it.
I didn't use their real names anywhere.
Oh, did you? Okay.
No.
I kept trying to remember and then having to look back, and I just got bored, so I stopped.
Yeah.
So that's the ADHD. Woo! He introduces himself as Howard Epps, a creative writing teacher at UC Santa Barbara. And
who couldn't afford to rent a classic Rolls Royce if he, even on his life insurance policy.
And George and his Watson is George Hoffman, his brother-in-law. He tells him that he is an industrial dye. So that's kind of interesting.
Industrial dice?
Yeah, I just thought that's kind of a cool job to... You wouldn't think to put it in the script. I don't know. It just felt like an interesting...
blue collar worker. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, he could be a white collar person for a company that makes industrial dice. Who knows?
True. Yeah. He tells them that for $500, they get to impersonate their favorite fictional detectives and pursue a case. Rocky is surprised that they pay to dress up like this. Howard says they have a fun group on the trip, citing other characters as Mr. Moto, Miss Marple, and Philip Marlowe. Laura asks where Rocky fits into all this. They tell them that they are each given a suspect, and they have to find them. George admits he had a hell of a time finding her, and Howard adds that they thought they were part of the game when they came storming down the alley. Laura asks about the case that they're working, and Howard Epps says it's full of sex, suicide, and blackmail. Laura quips all the things that make life worth living. Howard tells them the case revolves around a respected banker who embezzles $750,000 2 days before the bank examiners are due. He kills himself. Steele says it doesn't sound like much of a case, but Howard points out that the money was never recovered and that he was being blackmailed because of an involvement with a third-rate actress.
And Rocky's immediately offended.
Ouch, yeah, she takes exception to this.
Yes.
They apologize to her, saying that she fit the profile. She tells them that she is an actress and that she has had her Screen Extras card to prove it.
Screen Extra.
She's not third rate. Steele suggests that there has been a monumental mix-up, and Howard says he was hoping that they could lead him to Eddie Lucas. The minute he says Eddie Lucas, Rocky kind of says Eddie Lucas and drops the glass.
Mm-hmm.
So...
And Steele recognizes the oddness of her response to a supposedly fictitious character, but Laura not only doesn't, she seems to actually be trying hard to dismiss it as meaningless.
Yeah,
Why?
It's odd. That is odd, because she does ask, she says, do you know him? And Rocky says, how can I? He's a made-up character. And then you're right, she clearly and obviously makes a string of excuses, telling them she has to leave and to send her the bill, although she's unlikely to pay it, and she kind of makes her way out the door, right? Like it...
Yeah. And Laura is just like, ooh, okay, not a problem.
This should be raising alarm bells for Laura, for sure. Like,
yeah,
this is
especially
odd
if she's
behavior.
A qualified detective like we saw in season 1.
Yeah, yeah.
As opposed to the less qualified detective she is in season 2. Anyway.
Yeah, sometimes they've no, I agree with you. Something to maybe kind of talk about in our wrap up, but definitely it feels like they've
wrap up.
Oh yeah, there's a wrap up coming. But it does definitely feel like they've sometimes downplayed her abilities, which is frustrating because I don't know if I want to. I'll save up for the wrap up. But yeah,
Fine.
It is frustrating here. So yeah, Laura asks what part Lucas has to play, and Howard says he's the Moriarty. Whoever finds him wins the game. Hoffman adds that the trophy as well, and Howard sheepishly says that they will have to call in and admit their mistake. Steele asks who they call, and he tells them it's a mystery hotline. Whenever someone locates a suspect, they have to call in with the precise time. Steele asks for the number, and Howard says that he will leave it with their secretary, who we have not seen yet. Mildred has not made an appearance yet.
Except at the very beginning for the flowers.
Oh, that's right. You're right. Sorry. She very briefly was there. They usher them out the door, and Laura suspiciously asks what he's planning. He points out that Rocky's reaction was rather odd. Laura says Rocky is rather odd. That's still, like... Yeah. Sorry. Her instincts should tell her that this was a reaction that tells her she definitely knows this guy.
Yeah.
Right?
Learn to read the room.
She reminds him they haven't been hired to investigate any of it. My note here, why isn't Laura more curious about this? She's right.
That was kind of what I was alluding to earlier with my comment. Yeah.
I mean, she's right. They haven't been hired to. So if she uses that as her reason, I guess I could see it. But
still,
yeah. You'd think she'd want to know. Because Steele asks if she isn't even a little intrigued. Because if you think back to season 1, there was that one episode where she kept saying she smelled a case. And Steele was the one trying to say, like, there's nothing here. Like, she's the first person to pursue something if she thinks that there's something to pursue. But, she doesn't seem to want to here. And Steele asks if she isn't a little intrigued by grown men playing detective. Laura says not at all. She lives it every day.
again, why is Laura back to needling Steele about?
I don't know, like that. The only thing I can think of is that Michael Gleason wrote the episode, and he's maybe still writing their season 1 and 2 counterparts in some ways.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of how the flower subplot feels, right? Because
or it could be an episode that was left over from season 1 that was reworked.
That's true too.
To be in season 2, and just not everything got updated.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because it does feel like they've moved beyond her pointing out that he's lesser than her as a detective or whatever, right? Steele tells her that he will just have to go it alone once Mildred traces the number, which that gets her attention. So I do like that. We get a switch. As they walk towards the offices of the mystery tour, Steele says he's delighted that she decided to join him. And here we go back to the secret admirer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's one, like you said, like you pointed out, there's one of two options here. Either she knows that Steele is the one doing this and she's just trying to get under his skin because he's playing games, so she's playing them back, which is maybe not the most mature response, but it would be a better response, in my opinion, than the other option, which is that she legitimately thinks there's a secret admirer and she's entertaining the romance of it. Like they're together, they're in a relationship. This is not how you behave with somebody you're in a relationship with. You know?
And of course then there's the whole issue of what was written on the cards that is nearly pornographic and so personal that it can't be shared. And like, okay, I'm married, but say this was before Scott and I got married. We're in a relationship. If I start getting stuff at work with obscene stuff written on the card from somebody that is not Scott, I'm not only going to be furious and disturbed, I'm certainly not going to be like, oh, maybe it's Barry, the lawyer, that works in my, or maybe it's so, like, right in front of his face. Like that's hurtful and mean. Yeah.
And I don't know why she would do it if she doesn't know. I like to think, again, the other option isn't great either, but he's being extremely immature by using this ploy to begin with. This whole thing is very immature. I don't know why end of season 2, Mr. Steele would have to do this. They've had multiple conversations about where they stand as a couple. They know what they want from each other, and they know that certain things they're not able to give yet, but they're working on it. So this feels very not 1 step forward, 2 steps back. This feels like 8 steps back, So it's not his best self either. So I guess I'm going to headcanon it that she does know and that she's just, I don't know, trying to drive him crazy, because otherwise it's just mean. She says, because she muses that her secret admirer might be a lawyer named Barry she shared an elevator or two with. They reach the doors of the offices. As Laura says, it's a distinct possibility, adding that he's terribly persistent. Okay, has he hit on her before?
Apparently.
Interesting. The door is locked. Steele pulls out his lockpick. They enter the office, which has hardly anything in it. There are filing cabinets with nothing in them, a desk with empty drawers, so pretty much Steele's office, and a couch. The phone on the desk rings, and the machine picks it up. The person playing Philip Marlowe says he managed to get information out of a cabbie as to the whereabouts of a man named Vince Pappas. He says Pappas was chauffeuring for a General Ingram somewhere in Santa Monica. The message ends, and Laura comments that it might be Rick, the neurologist on 6. So she's still doing this whole secret admirer stuff.
Yeah. And my note here about all of this is that Laura went with him to the offices, but she's distracted, not really interested. And again, why? Especially since the office is suspiciously bare of any signs of actual use. Beyond a few bare minimums. I mean, this should be throwing up red flags, ringing alarm bells.
This is suspicious as hell.
Oh, yeah.
But
if no, she's
Sorry,
off in the ether. She's off in the ether.
Yeah. Like, if this were a legit company, there'd be a sign. There'd be a secretary. There'd be people working in this. Because theoretically, if this was a legit company, there'd be more than one magical mystery game going on at one time, you would think. And therefore, they would have people there checking the messages, doing the work, sending them out on missions, whatever it happens to be. Like, none of this says legitimate company. None of it. So, yeah, it's very bizarre behavior. Steele asks if she's been canvassing the building as another message plays. It's Mr. Moto calling in to tell him he's located Bernard Geiger. He runs a photography studio on Santa Monica Boulevard under the name Bernard Grayson. He says he's on his way there now. Steele stands up and says that the message came through a few minutes ago. Sorry, that's my writing. What?
You can't even read your own writing, and yet it's been typed.
I typed it, yeah. The message came through a few minutes ago, and if they hurry, they can catch Mr. Moto. Laura says this has gone far enough. Why? She says it's gone far enough. He asks her where her sense of adventure is. She says it's back at the office. He tells her he's sure that her secret admirer isn't going anywhere. Laura says she wants to find him before he's too old to do anything but admire. That's a low blow.
Yeah.
Again, if we're going on the theory that she doesn't know who this guy is, she's basically said right in front of her partner, significant other, that she wants to find this other guy who's interested so she can take him up on the offer? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious what she was thinking.
Right? And let's be clear here too. If there
this was before Viagra, so it's not like she has an option to extend it.
This is also if there actually was a secret admirer, she's assuming that this is somebody she would be attracted to. It could be.
Well, maybe she's not cared about attracted. She's only caring about
you could get Robert Redford, but you could also get Danny DeVito. So, I'm just saying.
Oh, terrible image.
So yeah, that's neither of them are being their best selves. Steele's actions are immature. Her actions are immature. I don't like this plot at all. We get a scene change. We see Moto also driving an old vehicle pull up in front of an adult photography studio. Did Wienhoff buy it from him? I'm just curious. We haven't gotten there yet, but I'm just saying.
Well, it does become available soon. So
that's true. And to echo your question, in my notes, here's where I wrote also, where are they getting these cars? So, yeah. You're not the only one wondering where they're getting all these vintage vehicles. So Mr. Moto goes inside, looks at the photos on the wall. The owner, Bernard, or
Geiger,
whatever his name, Geiger, tells him that it's $25 for half an hour, and anything he and the model work out in the privacy of their own cubicle is up to them. Oh, no.
I guess that's the line that you use when you're running that kind of a business.
I guess so. Ugh. He hands him a camera and makes a racist joke, which, again, we can't judge this on modern day standards. But that was racist in the 80s too. So
even in 1984, that comment was very stereotypical.
Yeah. So Moto tells him he's had a difficult time tracing him and calls him Mr. Geiger. He insists his name is Grayson. Moto tells him that this is quite different from the portrait studio he used to own, no doubt purchased with the blackmail money. Moto shows him a photo of Rocky and an older gentleman, presumably, well, I said presumably the dead man, but we find out who that is later. And Grayson demands to know where he got the picture and asks him to tell him about the whereabouts of Eddie Lucas. At the mention of Lucas's name, Geiger becomes enraged and throws him out of the shop. He then goes back to the shop and calls Eddie Lucas. Now here's something. Is this a payphone? It looks like he calls him on a payphone, but I don't see him put any money in. And why would you have a payphone inside your business?
Well, it does look like a payphone. There are businesses that did have payphones inside of them, but usually it was something like a hotel or a restaurant. Certainly not a photography studio, as Mr. Moto called it. I don't know. Maybe it's definitely inside the studio because you can see photos. I don't know. Maybe he's getting paid by the phone company to put it there. I don't know. It does seem a little weird.
It's an odd phone. But anyway.
It is, yeah, it isn't a payphone, but it is definitely an odd location for it to be.
Yeah. He tells them that they know about Rocky and the mark. He describes Mr. Moto as an Oriental man dressed like he's straight out of an old movie. And again, that's a word we don't use anymore, but was appropriate at the time, I assume. So, I mean, Oriental, we would say Asian now, but.
Yeah, I think even in the 80s, we probably would have said Asian, typically. You know, if you were not familiar enough to say, okay, I recognize this person as Japanese, Chinese, Filipino, whatever. Yeah, Asian would be, I would think, the term that you would use.
Yeah.
I think that's the term I would have used.
It's same, but it always strikes me as odd when I hear it because I don't hear that term very much. It's not something that I hear, but I guess unless we're talking about like murder on the Orient Express or something. But yeah, he tells him he didn't tell him anything, but it's obvious he's upset about this. He tells Eddie that the town has gone sour for him and he wants to try his luck somewhere else, but he needs a little stake. He tells him $5,000 or 10 if he's feeling generous would do. And we don't hear the conversation on the other end, but obviously Eddie doesn't respond well to this because Geiger becomes angry, saying it's not fair that he loses his shirt over the portrait studio and then asks how Eddie would like it if people found out who he really was. Bad thing to say.
Mistake.
Big mistake. He then backtracks, assuring Eddie that they would never find out from him. And after a pause, he is told to meet him at MacArthur Park at 10:30, a conversation that Mr. Moto overhears somehow from the window. Is that the same MacArthur Park as, the song?
Melting in the Dark?
Yeah.
It could very well be.
Someone left the cake.
I mean, of course, there's probably a lot of MacArthur Parks all over the country.
Well, do you know the story behind that? The song?
No. Other than the fact that I hate the song.
Okay, so I looked for this. Now, this could be me making this up, but my dad told me this story, and I did remember reading it somewhere, but I couldn't find it when I Googled it. Okay. So if I'm making it up, then I'm making it up. But essentially, the rumor that I was told was that the songwriter was talking to a friend of his, and the friend of his bet him that, because I guess they were arguing about lyrics versus music in a song. And Jimmy Webb, who wrote the original song, basically claimed that you could write a completely nonsense song as long as the music was good, nobody would care about the lyrics. And
welcome to 2024.
And his friend who he was arguing with disagreed and said the lyrics were important and that people wouldn't buy a song that had nonsense lyrics, and they bet a Rolls Royce. This was the rumor. And so the song MacArthur Park was written to be completely nonsensical to see if it would indeed become a hit. And Richard Harris is the one that sang it, and it peaked at number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 charts, and was subsequently covered by a bunch of different artists, including Waylon Jennings and Donna Summer, won a Grammy. And so therefore he was proven right and won the Rolls Royce. That was the rumor. But I can't find anything in Wikipedia or anywhere else that I Googled that says that hints at that, which I'm sure I read this somewhere.
It's just crazy enough to be true. And, he was a few decades too early, because basically anything written since like 2000 that's been a hit song. Yeah, you read the lyrics and it's like, yeah.
Well, and you also have to keep in mind, like, this, if you look at the song, it's got like different weird time signatures and key changes, and it's similar to Bohemian Rhapsody in that its structure is very bizarre.
Yeah.
So again, I couldn't find the rumor on that, but that's what I was told, and I know I read it somewhere. So anyway, totally
crazy
random,
enough to be true.
They're meeting at MacArthur Park. So Mr. Moto runs across the street to a payphone where he makes a call. As he does so, he passes the rabbit, which parks. Steele suggests they wait and see what he's up to. So then we get a scene change. Later on in the dark, we see Mr. Moto is still waiting outside the photo studio, as are Steele and Laura. Laura is annoyed and says that they should go home. Steele points out that Mr. Moto is in no hurry and says that it's because he's playing a game. but then adds that so is Mr. Steele. She suggests that he's only eager to pursue this non-existent case because it will distract her from finding out who her secret admirer is. I'm so happy when they drop this and just sort of forget about it for the rest of the episode. Because my note here was, why does it matter when she's in a relationship?
Yeah, and this whole conversation here of, are you pitting your phantom lover against me? Are you suggesting I'm trying to make you jealous? Pity because it's working. I don't know that I can handle all this honesty. This poet of the obscene might be a blessing in disguise. He's made me understand how much I mean to, or how much you mean to me. And this is where I have the note. The entire scam smacks of the scam he pulled in Steele Among the Living.
Yeah, and it's manipulative in a way that feels gross at this point, because she knows him well enough that he shouldn't have to do all of this just to say, I care about you and I want to tell you how much you mean to me. Like that, this all is, and my note I have here is, this is pretty shameful for both of them. Right? Like, is he doing this so that he has an excuse to confess his feelings? It feels like a weird backslide after so many important episodes this season where he has been honest to her about how he feels and she's been honest to him. Like,
there's better ways of doing this.
Yeah.
Like,
as a grown man, like, you shouldn't need to,
act like a 6-year-old.
Buy a greenhouse in order to tell somebody you care about them. Like, yeah, you're right. It's acting like a 6-year-old, right? So Laura asks if it would be in bad taste to raise a glass to her secret admirer or toast. And he says only if he's not there to share it. Just then, Geiger comes out of the store and gets in his car. He drives away and Moto follows. Steele looks at Laura, who decides in for a penny, in for a pound, and then follows. So we see them pull up to the park. Geiger gets out, followed by Moto, and then Steele and Laura. And when Geiger...
anyone ever watch detective and mystery movies? Any meeting at night in a cemetery is not going to end well. You just guaranteed.
Is MacArthur Park a cemetery? I thought it was just like a park.
I don't know. It looks like a cemetery to me.
Well, I guess it has at least one dead man by the end of the scene.
Well, even if it's not a cemetery, even if it's just a park at night, I mean, it's not a good sign.
Yeah, not a good idea. You're right. When Geiger sees Eddie's car, he calls to him. The window rolls down and a gun is visible. It shoots him. Geiger falls to the ground, dead. Moto is still thinking.
Yeah, I want to put a pin in this because this scene, I'm not going to say it had me confused because I wasn't confused. I was totally wrong.
Oh, okay.
Until I was finishing. I mean, the last thing I was putting in my notes, I was typing something because it ties into the end of the episode. And it just like, duh. I'm sorry.
It's
I mean, it was one of those.
Coming on.
It was one of those moments. Yeah, the light bulb broke.
The light bulb broke. It burnt out.
Anyway, all right, carry on.
Yeah. So Moto still thinks it's part of the game. He says he makes a hell of a corpse and runs off. Steele and Laura seem to realize the shots were real, and they run to Geiger's body. Steele listens for a heartbeat, declares he's dead for real. And Laura makes a comment that this doesn't come with the tour, which I kind of like. Yeah. So yeah, the next scene we see Steele enter a bar where Rocky is waitressing. She asks if they came to hear her sing and says she isn't really a waitress. She just does it for kicks.
Sure.
That is the most LA statement that I have ever heard. I'm not I'm really an actor.
I'm an actress, yes.
I'm just here for fun. Steele mentions Eddie Lucas, and she drops the glass again. When he calls her on it, she says she's naturally a nervous person. Right. They ask her what the names Geiger and Vince Pappas do for her equilibrium. She insists she doesn't know them and tells them that she has to change for her number. So obviously now they're both on board. She's hiding something. Steele suggests they sit down, and just as they are about to, Howard comes in with the rest of the mystery tour. He thanks Steele for inviting them and tells them that they are all there with the exception of Mr. Moto. He goes on to introduce them, and every time I hear Mr. Moto, I think of the phone. Hello, Moto.
It's
a Motorola. Motorola had an ad, string of ads a while back where they they'd do the ad and you'd hear, "Hello, Moto." So now that's what anyway. He goes on to introduce them, starting with Miss Marple. She tells him her name is it Ruth Gomprince? It's a weird name. From Modesto. She says her husband allows her these flights of fancy. Then Philip Marlowe is introduced, a.k.a. John Wiggins, and the actor who plays him, I know you didn't watch this show, but for those who did, they'd recognize the actor who plays Steve Darcy in Married with Children, because that's the guy playing Philip Marlowe. So
right over the head.
Yeah, I know, but it was I loved it. It was a good show. Philip Marlowe is introduced, a.k.a. John Wiggins. He says he likes that Marlowe doesn't take shinola from nobody, and that the problem with insurance is you can't tell people what you really think of them. I think that goes both ways, though, right? You can't tell your insurance broker what you really think of them either, because...
you know what the shinola reference is into, right?
No, I don't.
It's part of a phrase. They don't know from shinola. Only there's another word in there.
Oh, I know what the other word should be for sure.
Yeah, she and it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's part of that
okay
phrase. Yeah, for anybody who is younger who doesn't know that, they don't know from shinola.
Laura asks if their attire draws attention, and Watson says that's a wonderful thing about L.A. Nobody looks twice, which is exactly my point
what
with
you
the
were
cops.
saying.
Like,
Yep.
Miss Marple just says most people assume they're filming something. Again, yeah. Just then, Mr. Moto, a.k.a. Winston Sakata, arrives. He introduces himself. Laura's a little surprised by his name, and he explains that his parents wanted him to be as American as possible, so they hung Winston on him. I don't know that Winston is the most American name I could think of.
Well, I mean, it's not bad. I mean,
but it's not terrible. I'm just like, I would think more like Tommy or Bobby or, like your Joe.
Yeah, but I'm trying to remember. It seems to me that back in that era, the time when he would have been born, well, which would have been, late 40s, early 50s, maybe 60s. Those were the kinds of names that people were giving their kids. I mean,
Fair enough.
So, names changed.
That's true.
As you go through the years, the popular names change.
Oh, yeah. Do you know how many Braden, Aiden, Caden, Jaden, every possible variation of that I teach? All of them. All of them.
Mm-hmm.
Very popular right now.
Yeah, and probably in the early 60s, Sean would have been a very popular name because of Sean Connery.
That's true. Yeah. There's always a Sara, though. It doesn't matter what the time. There's always a Sara. That name just... So...
And every time I hear that name, I hear in my head, I hear the song by Bill Champlin.
Starship? Oh, Starship for me.
No.
Anyway. So Mr. Moto excitedly recounts the events of the evening, still under the impression it's part of the game. He says he followed Lucas and lost him on the freeway interchange, but that he did manage to get the license plate. Laura tells him they are private investigators, and Steele adds real investigators. Winston recognizes him from the park. Laura goes on to tell him that Geiger was really shot and that he's dead. Steele tells him they need the license number to track the killer. Winston tries to remember it, but he's rattled. He tells him he wrote it down, but it's back at the house as he stopped to change shirts. Steele assures him they'll go back and pick it up. Laura asks how they got hooked into the game, and Marlowe tells him that there was an ad in Mystery Buff magazine, and Miss Marple says it sounded like a hoot. Sherlock says they sent their money in, and a week or so later there was a packet in the mail with a scenario and the suspect they were expected to find. Just then they hear a drum roll, and someone announces Rocky Sullivan. Only she goes by Sandy Stevens. She's been singing for the last 6 weeks at a Hilton hotel, and she's changed into a red sparkly dress.
I'm sorry, that line. Direct from 6 smash weeks at the West Covina Hilton. Excuse me?
Yeah.
I mean, that's like direct from 6 smash weeks at the street corner on 5th and Main.
Yeah. Hey, at least it was a Hilton and not a Holiday Inn, I suppose. But yeah, you're right. She launches into a spirited rendition of Who's Sorry Now, and And as she does so, she stops cold as a man walks through the door. She picks up the song again, but it's obvious that she knows him and that she's freaked out. The man watches her intently as she continues to sing. She bumps into the piano, and as she comes to the end of her song, she crawls. This is weird. This makes no sense to me. She crawls underneath it, okay? When the song finishes, she has to crawl back out to run through the curtain. Why hide under the piano? Like, they could see her.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
Is this like when you're a kid and you throw the covers over your head and you think, well, if I can't see them, they can't see me?
That's got to be what it is, yeah.
So,
and I guess worst case scenario, she's close enough to the piano that she can move back a little bit and behind it and have a little bit of protection,
I think the piano was against a wall, wasn't it? Pretty sure the piano was up against a wall and she was just huddled under it. But either way, it's
either way, it's.
He tries to follow. Laura declares it looks as if another player just joined the game, and they run after them. Rocky races into her dressing room, locks the door. The man smashes right through it because he's built like a
Except
tank.
that when he smashes through it, nothing gets broken. There's no damage to the door frame.
Yeah.
Nothing. It's just like, oh, there's no lock on it. It's just push it open.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. When Steele gets there, he says he hopes they live to talk about this. Laura jumps on his back, and Steele hits him, but it does no good. He throws Laura off and shoves Steele onto the floor. He grabs Rocky again and tries to strangle her. Laura grabs a lamp, smashes it over his head. Steele hits him with a coat rack, so they're not really doing much damage. He manages to hit the man into a corner. Winston runs in. I love this. Winston runs in, telling him to stand back while he ineffectually tries to karate chop him.
Well, he's wearing the white ice cream man suit, So
I love the fact that they've got, because the stereotypes with Asian characters is that they're always they always know flawless martial arts, right? They're kung fu, whatever it is. But no, not Winston. He's terrible at it. He tries to do it, and it does not work.
No, not kung fu though, because that was a white guy. Anyway.
But the man runs out as others hit him with various things. So they all get in on the act. They're just kind of joining in here. I don't think they really chased him off so much as he realized he couldn't kill every single person there without drawing attention to himself.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Once he's gone, Sherlock asks who the man was. Steele thanks them all, but tells them to go back to their tables and asks that Winston stay behind so that the professionals can figure this out. As he sits down on the chair and brushes the debris off, he asks Laura and Rocky if they're okay. Laura asks Rocky if that was Eddie Lucas, and she tells him that was her ex, Vince Pappas. It's then that Winston puts two and two together, deciding that she's the girl from the picture, which was his clue to find Geiger. Rocky sees the photo and calls Eddie a creep, which causes Laura to make the assumption the man in the photo is Eddie. Rocky, however, says the man is a man named Arthur Brown, a patron who used to come into her club and buy her drinks after her show. She would occasionally take him back to her place and fix him breakfast. Steele gives her a look, and she clarifies that she wasn't interested in him like that. He was old, and she didn't want him to die on her.
I wonder what she means by that.
Yeah. She says that Eddie then told her that he was really Arthur Fowler. I wonder if he's related to Agnes Fowler from Steele in the News. Isn't that her name?
No.
Yeah.
You're right. It is.
Yeah. Her
Right,
real name.
is.
Her real name.
And that's the name that's recycled here in this episode.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That his name was Arthur Fowler, a wealthy man who ran a bank in Redwood City, calling him a valuable source of capital. She says that Eddie wanted her to get him into bed and take pictures. Steele muses that she apparently obliged. Rocky disputes it, however, saying that she told him no way, as Arthur had always been a gentleman and had never hit on her. Laura looks at the photo and suggests that Eddie might have doctored the photograph. Winston adds that Geiger would have been the guy to do it. And, Steele might want to keep that in mind when a certain issue of Bedside Babes crosses his desk. Also, could you doctor a photo that realistically back then? I know you can do it now. It's easy now.
Yeah.
I just don't know much about
it would take some work, but you could do it.
Yeah. Okay. Steele wonders what the connection is between Vince and Eddie, and she asks him that Vince ran errands for Eddie. Laura suggests that she stay at her loft for her own safety, and Rocky agrees, saying that she wants some clothes first. She looks at the photo once more, upset that Arthur was taken advantage of that way. She says, when you run with swine, you begin to resemble a pork chop.
That's a totally nonsensical line, but it's great.
I like it.
It's
but I
so
also
Rocky.
like that. Yeah, it is. And this actress, Lynn Randall, is, I mean, aside from being married to Michael Gleason at the time, she's a really good character actress. And anytime she appears, I fully buy into the character, right? She was great as Randy in Steel Trap, and she's fantastic.
A great ditz.
She's a great ditz, but here she's, I wouldn't say she's ditzy here, but it's more that she's
clueless,
clueless, delusional. I don't know what you painfully optimistic, whatever the term is for it. But
a couple cards short of a full deck.
Yeah, but she's sweet. Like, this character is sweet. To think, like, when you think about the fact that she's this wannabe actress, wannabe singer, right? Usually people that are so desperate to climb to the top don't care who they step on. And so in this particular instance, it wouldn't be odd to have a character who would be willing to do something like that to Arthur and blackmail him. But no, she was just touched that there was somebody that didn't want to hit on her. That was just there because they thought she was talented, or they liked her music, or whatever it was. And that she feels sad that this guy was taken advantage of. And I kind of like that they put that in there for her and didn't just, make her this kind of shallow, vain character who didn't care what happened to other people.
Yeah.
So we get a scene change. Is this at Steele's apartment? I couldn't tell. Or is it at Winston's? It's got to be at Winston's because he's gone back to get the...
No, because they haven't gotten to Winston's yet. So it's got to be they're headed to Winston's.
Right. But
so I think they're dropping him off outside of Winston's apartment. Yeah.
Yeah. Steele congratulates Winston on his detective work, saying that getting the license will go a long way to catching the killer. Winston begins to say that maybe he should stop fooling around and become a real detective when a shot rings out. Steele throws him to the ground, but Winston falls. A car drives off. Steele tries to catch it, but he's unable to. When he comes back, Winston is lying in a pool of blood. And this is, again, the blood's real here. We don't really see blood very often, but usually when we do, it's because it's important to the plot. And in this case, he's managed to write 2 letters from the license plate on the ground in his own blood. And Steele is visibly shaken. And this is the part of the episode. This is the point where, in my opinion, the episode goes from being entertaining, but good. Like, now it kind of shifts into good, because I kept rolling my eyes at that stupid secret admirer stuff, and it kind of dragged down that first half of the episode. Here it gives them something to really chew on. Right? Steele, again, has connected with somebody. He likes Winston. And Winston is so optimistic and so hopeful, and then, boom, he's gone. Right? So I like this. A scene change. Laura's loft. We hear pounding on the door. Laura rushes to the door. She opens it. She should have a keyhole, right? Like, there's no key. Like, otherwise, it doesn't seem to be the brightest idea to open the door without knowing who it is. Especially since there have been 2 murders. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. I like the door. I think it's cool, but like, she needs a keyhole. She just opens that thing up. Yeah. So he rushes in, jumps
maybe she
on
recognized his knock.
Yeah, maybe. He rushes in, jumps on Rocky, grabbing her by the throat, and demanding to know where to find Pappas. Rocky insists she doesn't know, and Steele shoves her down on the couch, insisting she's the only link he has. What is it this season with having him behave so violently with women? Have you noticed that?
Hadn't noticed it as a theme, but yeah, I guess you're right.
And it's not, I should specify, it's not just women, but like...
Yeah, he's gotten a lot more aggressive, physically aggressive, and tends to assault people a lot more than he used to. Yeah. Yeah,
he punches out Mildred in the first episode, and now he's grabbed... Like, this is... I get that he just saw something that was traumatizing, especially since he liked Winston.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that he's mad and he wants to kind of take that anger out somewhere, but Rocky's also a potential victim. Like, Pappas tried to kill her too.
Mm-hmm.
So choking her is not, like, that just
it's not helpful.
Really...
It's not helpful.
No. And Laura obviously kind of gets in between them. She demands to know what happened, pulls him off Rocky. Steele tells him how Winston died, and it's obvious he was affected by it, but it's not a good look for him. Laura is upset as well. Rocky insists that if she knew where he was, she would tell them. Steele demands to know where Eddie is, and Rocky insists she doesn't know. Laura tells him to go home, try to get some rest. They'll go at it full bore in the morning. Rocky warns them that if they do find Eddie, to be careful, as he likes to hurt people just for the fun of it. So, yeah, I don't know. It just seems to me that Steele is smart enough to know that Rocky would tell them if she knew.
Yeah, you would think so.
So, I don't know. Back at the office, we see Steele putting on a tie as Mildred comes in, declaring that they have hit the jackpot. She says Arthur Fowler, president of Redwood City Bank, committed suicide over 2 years ago after siphoning $700,000 from various accounts. Laura concludes that someone is using the mystery bus to ferret out the person who blackmailed Fowler. Yeah, there we go. Into embezzling the money. Laura asks if Arthur had any family, and Mildred says he had a daughter named Agnes. So yeah, they've recycled this name. She tells Mildred to find her, and Mildred promises to do so, saying that if you push the right button, there's no limit to what computers can cough up. Is this... Again, I use the question, could you do that in 1984? Just push a couple buttons and find anything? Like, you'd need specific programs, would you not?
Well, yeah, you'd have to have specific programs that you probably couldn't get to. You needed to be able to connect to other specific computers that you might not be able to, probably couldn't be able to.
Yeah.
Things like DMV computers. No, you couldn't just log into the computers at DMV. You still can't. I mean, no. Unless you're an employee and you've got certain authorizations, unless you are you're a very good hacker. But of course, the computer systems now are a lot more sophisticated, and so they've got a lot more vulnerabilities. But
yeah.
No, I mean, there's going to be phone calls made in order to get this information. It's not just a matter of hitting a few keys.
And we've established in the last episode that Laura has a contact at the DMV who has run license plates for them in the past. So like they have ways of doing that, but it's not through the computer necessarily.
Right.
Or at least not through theirs.
And then, they've got DMV, they've got people, Mildred's got contacts at the IRS.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they've got contacts at like the utility companies so that they can check various things. But yeah, there's going to be phone calls made that very little of it's going to be actually done on the computer at that point in time.
So she leaves. The mystery buffs come in, letting them know they heard about Winston. Laura assures them they're doing everything they can to find the person responsible. Watson urges Sherlock to say something, and he says that they have come to ask them not to pursue this any further and that they are in over their heads. Miss Marple adds that they don't want any more blood on their collective conscience. Steele takes exception to the idea, saying that Winston deserved better than that. They all take that in, and Laura asks Marlowe about his assignment, which was to find Pappas. He says he almost found him. He tells them that Pappas used to drive for a retired general out in Santa Monica, but he died of pneumonia a few months ago. He then says his wife let him thumb through his papers and came across a letter the general had written to Pappas 2 years ago. He says it seems that Pappas wanted to start his own limo service but couldn't come up with the money because of his police record. So the general wrote a letter vouching for his honesty. Steele asks if he remembers. Blah, blah, blah. Steele asks if he remembers the name of the limousine service, and Marlowe grabs a bowler hat saying it was Dome Limousine Service. Steele is impressed, saying he's not bad, and leaves the room with Laura running after him. In the limo, Laura warns him that if he goes up against Pappas with nothing more than his anger, she will end up making the same speech about him that he made about Winston. Steele asks if he has any suggestions. She picks up the car phone and calls the limo service, asking for a car, and Vince is the driver. She pauses and then asks when he left. Laura asks if he has an address, and after a beat, she suggests it was her husband who called. When she hangs up, she tells Steele that somebody else called and requested Pappas. She gives the address to Fred and tells him not to worry about conserving energy.
Some questions on this. First of all, Laura calls a company that Vince Pappas supposedly owns, but then asks for him to be the driver, which seems a little odd because...
I thought that too. Yeah.
Because obviously she assumes that it's a very, very small company, but if it's a small company, it's not small enough that he doesn't have somebody there answering the phones and acting as the clearinghouse and the scheduling and booking and such. And then also she says, well, it might have been my husband that called. Oh, yes, it was him that called. Wait a second. We find out later that it was a woman that called.
It was a woman. Yeah.
I mean, unless
she has a very
unless
manly
she
voice.
disguised her voice, was a... That's a very... Oh, yes.
Hi, I would like to request... No, that doesn't work, does it?
Well, actually, was it 19? No. I know that a few years after this, they had voice changing technology that you could use on a phone. I don't know if it would change your voice quite that much.
Well, and this is jumping ahead of ourselves, but in Dancer, Prancer, Donner, and Steele, that's the technique that's used at only it's a tape cassette, but yeah.
I don't know if at this time the technology existed to do it live or not. I know later it did because I worked for a guy. This would have been about 2010, 2011. I worked for a guy who owned a very small company. I didn't stay there very long for a lot of reasons. And he pretended to be three different people with various clients, and he had a voice changer that he talked through.
Oh, wow.
So that if they called
dedicated.
and they were talking to him and they were complaining about this other guy over there, or what, or
wow.
I don't want to talk to you. Let me talk to so and so. He would pretend to put them on hold and switch to another, transfer it over, and it was just him talking on the same phone through this voice changer. It's like, yeah.
Did he have three different colored phones? Maybe he worked for Grey Kirk.
No. No, they were all the same phone, but no, he did pretend to be three people. He did publish books under three different names.
That's weird.
Which were all the same book, just like reorganized and rewritten. He was trying to make himself out to be an expert in this field, and he wasn't. I mean, it didn't take me long working for the guy to realize that he was. Yeah, let's see. What's the word? Scammer.
I was going to say cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but yeah, okay.
No, scammer.
Gotcha.
Scammer. So,
yeah. I would love it if somebody could compile a list for us of all the different ways that they tell Fred to speed. Because in this case, Laura says, don't worry about conserving energy. I think Steele at one point said, don't spare the rubber. Like, I would love just
I'll pay for the ticket. I think it was the one.
Yeah, I'll pay for the ticket. Yeah, that was another one. Yeah, I'd love a compilation of all the instructions to Fred. And Fred does a quick U-turn. And I would love to have seen Fred's job interview. Where they sat him down and they explain his duties. You're gonna have to be. It's good. This is going to require some creative driving on your part. When you're told to go, you go. So yeah, he does a quick U-turn, and they soon pull up to a white limo. Laura and Steele sneak up behind the driver and open the door, only to see Vince Pappas dead from a bullet to the back of the skull. Laura concludes that he was shot from behind, and that Eddie is eliminating anyone that had anything to do with the blackmailing scheme. Steele is frustrated because they are always one step behind. Laura comments that is an astute observation. She suggests they canvass the neighborhood to see if anyone saw anything. Steele tells her he's going to leave her that in her capable hands and walks away. Laura is obviously upset. This, in my opinion, is the better subplot for their relationship. The fact that he is letting his anger get the better of him, that he's not necessarily going off on his own, because we've seen at this point that he's capable of doing stuff on his own, but that he's not communicating with her, and that he's letting his anger drive him. She's trying to work as a team. He's trying to avenge his friend. That I think is more interesting.
Yeah, I've got a slightly different take on it. My note here is Steele walks off angry, and is it just me, or has he been becoming a bit more reckless throughout the season? And I don't like. I'm not going to disagree that it's probably a better option than what's offered.
Yeah,
but I don't like it.
No, I'm not a fan of this version of Steele either. I feel like, and again, we'll talk about this more in the wrap up.
What are you talking about? I have no clue.
Kicking and screaming, everyone. But I definitely feel that
I've been taken hostage. I've been ordered to read this note. There will not be.
But you're right. I definitely feel like this season has not really done a lot of favors for either of them.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen a lot of episodes where Steele has behaved extremely violently, like trying to kill Major Descoing, shooting that mirror, and lucky for him, turned out to be a mirror, because otherwise he would have shot him right in the face.
Yeah, or getting abusive with Mueller.
Yeah, there's been a lot of incidents that seem very. I can see Steele being upset about this enough to not want to listen and slow down. That I can see being him. But you're right. The recklessness, the other stuff, it's not great. It's not. It's better than the secret admirer stuff, but yeah.
Yeah.
So we switch. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, between the two options that were given, this is the better option.
Yeah.
But neither one of these options are good. There were better options available.
Yeah, I think so too. Steele goes to Pappas's place, begins to trash it. And this
very sloppy and careless job of searching the room.
He doesn't even, he goes through the mail, tears apart the bed, eventually comes across a shopping list written on a pad with letterhead that reads Edwin Lawton Investments. Picks up the phone, begins to dial. Wouldn't he be leaving fingerprints all over Pappas's trashed apartment? And would that not implicate him in Pappas's murder?
Mm-hmm. And the way he's going through it, who knows what kind of stuff he's overlooking, because he's not really looking. He's just tossing the place. Yeah,
he's on a rampage. And this is where having Laura with him would be helpful, because Laura would be the one to say, okay, we need to look methodically through this place and not just throw everything on the floor.
Yeah.
Laura, meanwhile,
take a professional approach.
Yeah. She's back at the office. She's listening to the messages that were left from the mystery buffs with regards to their respective assignments. She hears Winston speaking, describing the meet that Geiger had arranged with Eddie Lucas. The buzzer goes, and Laura answers it. It's Steele, who tells her he may have found something. Laura says she might have something as well, and Steele tells her he will let her know where it leads him. She urges him not to do anything rash and wonders if it's professional advice. She says it is, but with a dash of personal concern. He promises to be the soul of discretion and hangs up. Why not ask him where he is and go with him?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. I had a different question. My question was, why does she sound so sarcastic and not genuinely concerned?
Yeah, I mean, she saw how upset he was with Rocky.
Yeah. So yeah, both of those things, they almost tie together in a way, because she knows that he's definitely on a rampage, and you don't want him. You don't want a loose cannon running around, and that's what she's got right now, is a loose cannon running around.
Yeah,
and being sarcastic and obviously not genuinely concerned, because from her tone, it seems clear to me that she's not genuinely concerned about his safety too much. I mean, a little bit, but not too much. I mean, that's just that's poking the bear.
Yeah.
That's just, okay, you're angry, you're irritated, you're gonna do something reckless and careless and potentially dangerous. And so let me just poke you a little bit more, get you amped up just a little bit farther, so that I can say at the end, I told you so. I mean, that's what that is about.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the delivery of the line, because I don't know if it's necessarily meant that way, but it definitely comes across that way. And I feel like her response should have been, I found something too. Why don't we meet up and we'll pursue both leads together? Where are you?
Exchange information. Yeah.
Because it's not like she's worried about him because in season 1, she would have insisted on going with him because she wouldn't think him capable.
Right.
Now it's not necessarily that he's not capable, but that he's not thinking. And this is the time to be by his side going, okay, slow down. Because when she made that comment,
you gotta make the morning last. Oh, sorry.
Shut up. No, but like when she made that comment in the limo, it worked, right? That they can't just charge in headlong. They got to think about this. So,
right.
Yeah. So then we see Steele at a posh golf club. I do love the return of Johnny Todd.
That's what I got in my notes right there too.
Yeah. Johnny Todd is back, and it's funny because we first saw Johnny Todd in Sting of Steel, which was the second last episode of last season. So, and I had commented that I thought that episode should have been the finale of season 1. So it kind of feels like Johnny Todd is bookending both seasons here. Yeah, we can hear him on the phone telling the person on the other end to page someone. He hangs up and joins Rocky, who asks him why he's dressed like that. He tells her he didn't want to be the only one without another identity. A voice comes over the intercom, paging Edwin Lawton.
A guy who's running a fake identity has to have a fake identity for his fake identity.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Makes perfect sense. Don't you have a fake identity? Doesn't everybody have a fake identity?
I've got 2. My fake identity has a fake identity.
There you go. Rocky asks who that is, and he says it's her job to tell him. As the man approaches, Rocky visibly recoils and identifies Edwin Lawton as Eddie Lucas. She tries to escape, but Steele holds her and tells her to stay. He wants Eddie to get a good look at her. She points out that he just killed Vince, and she's probably next, and Steele tells her he won't do anything there. Rocky's not so sure. She says crowds never bothered him. Steele tells her to go back to the loft, lock the door, and swallow the key, and walks over to Lucas. Before he can grab the phone, he addresses him by calling him his real name. Eddie asks if he knows Steele, and Steele says no, but he got an earful from his bird. He looks over and sees Rocky.
Okay. What was that sigh all about?
Just the British isms that Johnny Todd comes out with here. I don't know. It reminds like the dialogue tracks for who he's supposed to be, right? He's supposed to be somebody who's kind of lower class, criminal type. And in the UK, in Scotland anyway, it's still used. That phrase is the word bird is still used to refer to a girl, but usually by what they call Neds. So,
but what?
Neds. Okay. The word Ned stands for non-educated delinquent. So, yeah. So
makes me wonder what the word Sheila in Australia stands for. She had every.
Yeah, so he's basically acting like a Ned.
Okay.
He looks over and sees Rocky, who promptly bolts. Steele goes on to tell him that she has told her everything and that the embezzlement, the blackmail with Arthur Fowler. Lucas grabs Steele and shoves him up against a tree, demanding to know his name. Steele tells him it's Johnny Todd, and Lucas then denies everything. Steele tells him that Eddie Lucas's actions might strike a sour note among his rich friends who know him as Edwin Lawton. Lucas tells him he will have a tough time selling that one, but Steele points out that it would be easy enough to run his fingerprints to connect Eddie to his crimes. He tells him he wants $50,000 and to bring it to Rocky's apartment before leaving. I'm slightly confused with the next line. He says, Never done a stretch in the Nick, love. No way anyone could run your prints and come up with your real name. Is he... Because a stretch in the Nick is like jail, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is he implying that Eddie has likely done time and therefore that's how his identity could be? That's what I got from that, right?
What I get out of that is that, okay, Lucas is saying, well, you've got no way to convince anybody that I'm really Eddie Lucas and not Edward Lawton. And Steele's commenting that, really? You think I'm that stupid to think that you're that stupid? Because, I mean, you've been in jail, right, Eddie?
Okay, yeah.
You know how easy it is for somebody to run fingerprints and find out who you are. I mean,
Okay, that makes more sense. I had to rewatch it a few times first to get the line because he says it so fast.
Mm-hmm.
He delivers that line really quickly.
Yeah.
And
the
then
next line is the one I have problems with.
Which one is
Banks
that?
close at 3:00.
Oh.
I'm thinking that this would have been on a Saturday then, because the only time I could think that a bank would close at 3:00 would not be on a business day. It would be on a Saturday. I'm not sure if that has any relationship to the episode or not, but I mean, it just struck me as kind of a weird line.
See, here actually, to me, that made perfect sense because I remember being a kid, banks closing stupidly early, and they weren't open on weekends. And if you wanted to go to the bank, you did it during office hours because they closed like ridiculously early.
Well,
Not anymore.
I know banks didn't used to be open on Saturday, and one of the reasons they did was because people were complaining that bankers' hours,
Yeah.
I'm working same hours that the bank is. How am I supposed to go to the bank, get business taken care of? I don't remember them closing early during the week, but they may have. I don't know.
Yeah.
It just that line, it was just like, what? Closing at 3:00?
Even here, my bank is not open on a Saturday. At least not the branch near me. I'd have to go across the city to find a branch that's open. So, yeah.
Yeah, I guess the excuse is now, well, we have ATMs. You don't need to have it.
Well, but I mean, I've got my app. The app is on my phone. So, frankly, I don't ever go to the bank, but still.
Well, I do have to go to the bank because I've got a couple of different accounts that I use for different things.
Right.
And so sometimes I have to transfer money over. But yeah,
See,
I mean,
I can do all that on my app.
Well, I don't like to do deposits through the ATM because they take an extra day to process through. And so banks who seem to think that any fee is a good fee, and even if we have to make it up, so even if you make a deposit on this day, well, yeah, you made it on this day, but we didn't count it until the next day. So technically you were overdrafted on this day. It's like, no, I wasn't. Yeah, you were, because that's how we count it. But anyway.
Yeah, anything to get your money.
Yeah,
that's true.
I mean, and like I have an issue with a particular bank that goes by the name of Wells Fargo, but I won't mention them. I've never, it used to be that you could go in and you could make a cash deposit to your account or any account for that matter. And you just, as long as you had the account number and you were depositing cash, what did it matter who you were? Now, Wells Fargo is the only bank that when I do a cash deposit, they want to see additional ID. It's like, I've got my bank card. This tells you everything. No, we need to see your driver's license too. Why? Is using actual cash money, like, is that suspect now?
I never carry cash. It's too bulky. It's a perfect setup.
Yeah. Never mind.
So yeah, we've got a scene change here. Steele is sitting in Rocky's apartment waiting with the gun. He hears someone outside and opens it, shoving the gun in Laura's face accidentally. Ugh, dude. He asks him what she's doing there. Yeah. Yeah. He asks him what she's doing there, and she says the same thing he is, waiting for their killer. Steele assures her that he will come and that he will bring the gun he killed the others with. Laura tells him not to do that to her again. He asks what, and she says take off like that. She tells him that if they're partners, they need to act like partners. Steele equates that to her acting like he is an equal. She refuses that and says they are just partners, which, come on, that's splitting hairs.
Well, again, what's with the condescending tone? Because she's clearly got a condescending tone in this. I mean, it's like, yeah, I didn't say we were equals, just partners.
Yeah. I would hope that she simply means that she still owns the business, but still, it doesn't come across that way.
No,
it definitely
that's definitely not the meaning there.
Yeah, he says some partners are more equal than others, eh? And before she can respond, the door opens and Steele shoves the gun again in Miss Marple's face. Mm-hmm. He asks what she's doing there, and she says that Laura left a message telling her that Eddie was going to be apprehended. Laura asks if she came for a good seat, and you can tell that Laura's clued in on this. Steele takes a minute or so, but and she tells her that they will all have a stake in seeing him pay. Laura asks how she wants to see him pay. Like the others, with a bullet? Steele looks surprised. He tells Laura she's being a bit harsh, but Laura isn't so sure. She challenges Ruth on her name, gets close to her, and wrenches her arm behind her back, pulling off a mask to reveal a younger woman. She tells Steele to meet Agnes Fowler. Not the one in Steele in the News, but different Agnes Fowler. She pulls out a gun and tells Steele to put his down. He does so, asking if this is the killer or a twist in an already dizzying case. Laura doesn't seem terribly concerned, saying that sometimes good old-fashioned detective work pays off. She tells him a young woman was seen leaving the limo, which caused her to start thinking. She played the tapes with the mystery bus calling in their progress, and she realized that Miss Marple wasn't on any of them because she was too busy picking up the messages. Steele realizes that's why she knew Geiger was in the park. Winston reported the time and places of the meetings. Laura adds that if she was in the room when they found out that Pappas ran Dome limousine service, she points the theory that she must have asked Mildred to use the phone. Oh, see, then that doesn't make any sense because it's not even like they were using voice technology. Mildred was the one that called ahead.
Yeah.
So
no, she used Mildred's phone at the office.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought it meant
but
that. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, let's go back to my earlier comment before all the voice changing technology. Supposedly, Laura said, "Oh yeah, that was my husband that called and reserved the limo," but yet it was a woman that called to reserve the limo.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Fowler seems pretty pleased with herself that he didn't suspect a thing when a young lady sat behind him. Steele asks why she had to kill Winston. She says she didn't want to, but she couldn't take the chance that he might remember the license plate.
This is the pin. This is the pinpoint, because when I was completely done with my notes, I was adding a couple of things, and this comment was one of the things I was adding because I was sitting there typing. Why did she have to kill him? Because if Eddie Lucas killed Geiger, it didn't matter. It didn't matter if Winston had the license plate because she was going to kill Lucas eventually anyway. And then it dawned on me. I fell for the scam. Lucas didn't do it. She killed him.
She did it, yeah. She just wanted them to find out their location, and then she was going around.
I was this old when I figured this out.
To be fair, it is a bit of a complex plot that they've kind of squished into 45 minutes. But
both with Geiger and Pappas, we hear about Eddie Lucas. Yeah, he's been shot. Eddie Lucas. Pappas has been shot. Eddie Lucas. And so we've been assuming that it's Eddie Lucas all this entire time, and even after watching this episode time and time again, I only just now figured out that. And that wasn't Eddie Lucas in the car that shot Geiger.
Eddie's done a lot of stuff, but he didn't do this. So you're right. It was her. She tells him she just needed to kill. She just needs to kill Lucas, and then her father will be avenged. Laura tells him that Rocky was never involved with her father, and the picture was a fake. Agnes acknowledges that she knew the picture was fake, but that her father was also a proud man and that he couldn't handle that kind of debasement. At this, the phone rings. Steele tells her it could be Eddie, and she tells him to answer the phone. He does, and Eddie says he has the money, but he's tied up at the office. He's clearly lying as he's standing in a payphone outside. He tells Steele to come by, and he will pay him there. Steele agrees and hangs up. Lucas then goes inside, takes his gun out, and stands outside the door. This is where Steele quotes, I think, our only movie reference in the episode, The Big Sleep, telling them that in the film, the killer sets a trap for Bogart. The first person through the door is shot, only Bogart knows it's a trap, so he forces the killer out and is gunned down by his own men. Steele says that Lucas is probably outside the door. Laura says they should call the police, but Agnes says no. Laura tells her she can't sit there forever. But she doesn't plan to. She edges toward the door, saying that there hasn't been much to her life since her father died. She tells them they can have Lucas for murder. She throws open the door, runs out toward Lucas, who guns her down. This is dumb. She doesn't...
somebody's coming out of the door. Let's just shoot him. It may be the right person. It may not be, but we'll just shoot first and don't bother asking questions later. Yeah.
Well, I actually meant on her part. She this tracks in terms like Lucas thinks that they're in the room and he wants them gone. So I don't think he particularly cares who he kills, but I just meant that
that's probably true.
If she wants Lucas dead, she says you can have him for murder and basically commit suicide running into the bullets. Why not run out there shooting? Like, you at least might take him down with you. Yeah, but I guess. Not murder. I guess, but
see, what she's counting on is him getting the electric chair.
Yeah. Does California have the death penalty?
I don't know if they do at that time or not.
Do they now?
I'm pretty sure California does not have the death penalty right now, and I seriously question whether it did back then. So, yeah, you're right from this standpoint of it doesn't seem to really be an action that's going to accomplish what she says she wants to accomplish.
Yeah. But, I mean, and then Steele gives Laura the gun, tells him to cover him and try not to hit him. Okay.
I'm sorry. If somebody's going to be firing a gun, being in front of them, no matter what kind of instructions you give them, is probably not a smart thing.
Yeah. And to me, the better play here would be to point a gun at the door, call the police, and say, "Hey, Eddie Lucas just killed a woman right outside the door, and they can have him for murder." But instead, he rolls out the door. Laura starts firing. Steele jumps on Lucas. They go down the stairs. He gets the upper hand, knocks him out as Laura goes to Agnes, who's lying on the ground dead. So that's the the end to poor Agnes. And I kind of wish we had gotten a bit more. I get that they hid her for the purpose of the twist, but she says there hasn't been much to my life and decides to kill herself. And she also says that she didn't want to kill Winston, but she had to. Like, to me, this seems like you could have a more nuanced portrayal of this character who is essentially doing what she's doing, knowing that she's not going to get out of it. She's either going to go to jail or she's going to die. Like, those are her two options, and I don't feel like we ever really got to know much about her because she only shows up for the one scene. I mean, as herself.
Yeah. So. She's really not even a character in the episode at all.
She's a plot device.
Yeah.
So it which is kind of a shame because I feel like you could have filled in more stuff. You could have taken out all that secret admirer stuff and maybe fleshed out the plot. But anyway. So we've got a scene change. Sherlock, Watson, and Marlowe are in the office. Marlowe remarks on how she was a real dizzy dame. And Watson says she can now rest next to her beloved father. None of them seem particularly upset that she killed their friend. So there's that.
No.
But Steele does say it was a sad end to a sad life, which I think is true. So
yeah.
Just then Rocky struts in. She's got a new dress. Marlowe says that they have invited her to perform at the next Mystery Bus Ball. She says they'll get to see her act since they didn't get to see it the other night. And Watson says they're prepared to have their socks knocked off, and they walk out the door arm in arm, which is cute. Steele says good day to them as Laura comes into the office. Steele asks her if she's had any progress tracking down her secret admirer. Why do we have to go back to this? Yeah. She tells him she had Mildred. And this is the other thing. He's not that dumb.
No, he's not.
Like, this seems phenomenally stupid. If you're going to pull something like this, to charge it to the agency, to think she's never going to see that, or she's not going to... Unless
he wanted her to see it. That was part of his plan from the beginning, which makes the whole thing seem nonsensical from the start.
Yeah, but I mean...
Yeah, I know. The whole plot point, the whole...
Does he really think she's going to... Like, yeah, it's so...
Yeah.
She tells him she had Mildred track down the better florist in the city. He asks what she came up with, and Laura says a bill for $3,000 charged to the agency and signed by him. He asks why he would do that. She says so that he can pretend to be jealous and realize how much he cares for her. Steele asks whether she's impressed that he cares so much to come up with something. Are you impressed I spent all your money to lie to you? What?
That makes it an ego thing. on his part.
Yeah.
Hey, look at me. I'm impressive. You should be impressed by me.
I'm real good at spending your money.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and she says, no, not $3,000 worth. So at this, Mildred comes in with more flowers. She's visibly annoyed, especially when she is told there are bushels more. He insists he didn't send these ones, and Laura looks happy once more as it freezes.
Don't you think that Laura sent those as kind of payback to him?
Probably. I mean
that
but
within the context of the story, that seems to me like what's happening here is, okay, she figured out he was doing it, so this time she's going to do it and payback,
Yeah, it's so immature. It really, like, the only good that comes of this, literally the only good that comes of this subplot of this episode, is that later when we see Santa Claus is coming to steal, it helps to set up the twist of Wally and how he's stalking her. In my opinion, that's literally the only good that comes out of this, because later,
and that could have been accomplished a different way.
It definitely could have been accomplished a different way, but like, I'm trying to see the positive here, okay?
I'm positive it could have been done a different way.
But yeah, as far as the season finale goes, I don't feel it really measures up as a season finale. As an episode, I really like the plot. I like the mystery plot. I like
the mystery plot, yeah.
I like that we see a little, again, I maybe don't like Steele's tendency toward violence, but I do like that there's an emotional component to this that is important. It's not just a run-of-the-mill mystery. It's fun. Like, there's some fun moments, especially, with Rocky and the motorcycle and the, that stuff. So I would say it's an average episode. It's got its pluses and minuses. Yeah. I think Hounded might have been a better finale.
Yeah. Once again, the penultimate episode really should have been the series finale, or the episode series finale, season finale.
Yeah, I think there's just more to Hounded that kind of touches all the bases, and Mildred's in that one a heck of a lot more, obviously, because it's a Mildred-based story. She's barely in this episode. She pops up 2 or 3 times, but she doesn't do anything worthwhile. She just kind of, that must have been an easy paycheck for Doris Roberts, for this episode. So overall, I'd say, it's a solid B plus, but definitely not up to some of the other episodes.
I wouldn't give it the plus. I'd call it a B, but yeah, it's the mystery part of it's a good episode. They could have replaced the entire flowers thing.
Yeah, that could have been done away with.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's it, though. So, okay. On the website, www.SteeleWatching.com, you'll find show notes, links to Amazon US and Amazon Canada, as well as merch links and ways to support us if you are feeling so inclined to do so. So, yeah, feel free to check out that, as well as
links to the SteeleWatching. Okay, let me start that again. We've got links to the SteeleWatching Facebook page, the Twitter, the Instagram, and a link to the Steele Watchers Facebook group, which is the unofficial but officially endorsed Facebook group for Remington Steele fans.
Exactly. Yes. What he said.
And don't ask me to say it again, because I couldn't.
And the next episode
does not exist. It will not exist.
The next episode will be the season 2 wrap up / top 5. So stay tuned for that, which Eric will do willingly.
No, that's a gun in my back.
I'm Canadian. I don't know how to use one of those.
Just point it and shoot. Anyway, all right.
So thanks for joining us, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody. Hey, everybody. Eric and Sara here. Just a quick announcement to let you know that, yes, we do appreciate everyone who listens, participates, and supports the podcast in whatever way you do. But we wanted to give an extra thank you to those who are so graciously giving to be monthly financial supporters.
We are making live streams of our recording sessions available to anyone who is a monthly financial supporter. So not only can you watch us live as we record our podcast episodes, you will be getting access to the raw, behind-the-scenes, unedited version of episodes before they get officially released.
And Sarah, does that include our mistakes and screw-ups and our humiliating?
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Every
it does.
single one of them.
Every single one of them, yes. So again, this is just an extra thank you to those who are going above and beyond. But whether you choose to become a monthly financial supporter or not, we still love you. We want to say we thank you for your support, your encouragement, and your feedback.
If you want to become a monthly financial supporter, please visit our website at www.SteeleWatching.com to sign up.